Welcome in. My name is Derek Delaney, founder and president of PharmD Financial Planning. For pre-retirees and retirees alike, one of the biggest decisions they're going to make is deciding what to do with their Social Security benefit. Because of that, a lot of other things when it comes to retirement planning will start to fall in line better and become much more clear once you make your Social Security decision. So it has ramifications above and beyond just the amount of benefit you're going to receive every single month. And that's why understanding your Social Security and making sure that you make the smart and correct decision, because you can only make it once, is absolutely critical. However, for a lot of people, understanding their Social Security based off of the statement they receive gets pretty confusing and oftentimes leads them in a direction that they didn't anticipate, with information that ends up being incorrect when it comes time to collect their benefit. So in this video, I'm going to walk through a sample Social Security statement and explain everything you're going to want to know about Social Security in your statement when it comes time to prepare yourself to collect that benefit. So let's jump right in and look at a sample Social Security statement. In this statement, we are assuming that we're going to look at the Social Security statement for Wanda Worker. But before we jump in, I just want to give you a brief history of Social Security and the statements that used to get mailed and the other option people have now if they don't find themselves receiving their Social Security statement in the mail anymore. So going back to 1999, that's when the Social Security Administration began mailing out statements to people. However, due to budget cuts and not having enough money, in 2017, the Social Security Administration decided that they no longer will mail out annual statements to people unless you're age 60 or older. So if you're 53, 54, all the way up to age 60, and you haven't gotten a Social Security statement in a while, don't hold your breath. You're probably not going to get one until you get to age 60. And even then, you're only going to get an annual statement. And the reason for this is because the Social Security Administration is trying to incentivize people to create an online account on their website where you can log in and look at your Social Security statement however often you want, and also make updates or changes to your Social Security benefit at any time. So it's taking away the cost of mailing those statements and putting that burden on recipients or future recipients by forcing them to go to ssa.gov and create an online account. I will say it's very easy to create, and once you do, I think it's a better option than receiving those annual statements anyway, just because it's easier to manage. So just know that if you're still waiting on your Social Security statement, or you're wondering why you don't receive it as often as you used to, that's kind of the brief history of what's going on. So with that behind us, let's jump into what we need to know about the actual Social Security statement. I think 12 to 18 months ago, they actually changed the statement. It used to be 3 pages. Now it's 2, and they changed the coloring. So that could be a little different for a lot of people. And I think one of the biggest things that Social Security did when they changed their statement is they got rid of that page 1 of the statement, which essentially just reminded people that Social Security is meant to be supplemental income in retirement. It should not be meant to provide or replace their working income in retirement. Social Security likes to point out that on average, the Social Security benefit will replace 40% of a worker's annual pre-retirement earnings. However, we all know that if you are a higher income earner or you have a higher net worth, that 40% will drop dramatically. So just know that Social Security is not meant to carry you throughout retirement. It's meant to be a supplement to other retirement savings or guaranteed income sources you're going to rely on in retirement. So that was essentially page number 1 of the old statement, and now they eliminated that, so we're on to 2 pages. And this first page gives us the meat and potatoes of the information most people want to know, and that is the retirement benefit. So you can see here, there's a box that talks about the retirement benefit, and then the section over here shows us the different retirement benefit amounts you could receive at any given age. Now, most of you probably already know, but it's important to revisit this, and that is you could start taking Social Security at age 62. However, every year you wait to turn on Social Security, that benefit will grow by approximately 8% every single year. And you can hold off on taking Social Security all the way up to age 70. And it's also important to note that if you're a married couple and you both are collecting Social Security, the bigger of the two Social Security checks will remain for the surviving spouse's life. So if it's important to maximize Social Security, if you feel like one spouse has the probability of outliving the other for a substantial amount of time, or if there is longevity in one spouse's family and not the other. So that's just one more thing to think about as you start to try to figure out how you're going to best utilize your benefit. One of the interesting things about page number 1 with Social Security is it is listed, or these amounts are listed in current dollars. So if you're 55 years old and you look at your benefit and you go, well, that's not a whole lot. By the time I get to age 67, which is 12 years from now, if you're 55, that's not going to be a lot of income. And it's important to know that that number will inflation adjust itself. But it's important to note that the inflation adjustment on Social Security happens in two different ways. The first way is for wages that are earned up until age 60. The second way is a cost of living adjustment you will receive on your benefit at age 62 up and through age 70. So the wage inflation adjustment up until age 60 is based off of the National Average Wage Index. So if you have 35, 45, 55 years of earning history, they will, and you go back into the early 70s, they will take what you made in the early 70s and they will inflation adjust that every single year until you get to age, or until you get past age 60. And that adjustment in and of itself will increase your benefit amount every single year as well. And then once you get to age 60, your benefit amounts will start increasing by the cost of living adjustment that is applied to current people, or current Social Security benefit recipients, and those who are not receiving Social Security but find themselves aged 62 to 70. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, if inflation adjustment is applied through age 60, and then that cost of living adjustment is applied to my benefit amount from age 62 to 70, what about the people who are aged 60 and 61? And the reality of that situation is that is kind of an inflation donut hole for Social Security recipients, or future Social Security recipients, where if you're age 60 and 61, you don't receive any sort of inflation adjustment, which going back 2 years and later didn't matter for a lot of people because inflation was relatively low. However, those people over the last 2 years who were age 60 or 61, who found themselves experiencing skyrocketing inflation, also found themselves in that Social Security inflation donut hole where they did not receive any sort of inflation adjustment on their benefit or their previous wages, which is a dramatic loss because the inflation adjustment, or the cost of living adjustment and the inflation adjustment on those wages were higher than they have been going back the last 35, 40 years. So unfortunately, if you were born in 1960 or 1961, I believe it would make you 60 or 61 over the last handful of years. You didn't get to take part as far as receiving the inflation adjustment on either your benefit or your past wages, which is kind of a bummer. But just know that these numbers are inflation adjustment in one of two of those ways, unless you're age 60 or 61. It's also important to note that this last section of this box explains it perfectly, where the estimates of your benefit are based off of the assumption that you will continue to earn your most recent annual salary up until you start turning Social Security on at any of these ages over here. So if you're 55 years old and you're making $100,000 in a year, and you go, you know what, when I turn 60, I'm going to start, or when I turn 58, I'm going to start working part-time and making less. And then I'm going to turn my benefit on at age 64. The inflation adjusted amount you think you're going to get, or that you calculate based off of the current statement you're looking at, is probably not as much as you're actually going to get, because the benefit you're looking at currently will assume that you're going to earn $100,000 and not cut back on work up until you actually start taking that benefit. If you retire at, let's just say, 57, 58 years old, Social Security will assume that the year that you retire and you don't earn any income is a just a weird year for you, where they will then take your prior year's earnings and apply that as future earnings up until your future retirement date, where you actually have to show 2 consecutive years of not earning any money before your Social Security calculated benefit will assume you won't earn any more money and will set your benefit up accordingly for that future date. So just know that if you decide to pull back and receive less income before you turn your benefit on, or you retire earlier than most people, Social Security will not reflect that in your benefit until a couple years down the road. So just know that it's important as you're trying to figure out what your future benefit might be to factor that in. And there is actually a calculator on the Social Security website that you can use to put in projected future lower earning income years, and it will provide you with what your future benefit will look like, which will give you a more accurate estimate than the actual Social Security statement is showing you in that year. The other things on the first page are disability benefits, Medicare, and survivor benefits, which are pretty straightforward. If we move to page 2, the big piece of information you're going to want to be aware of here is your earnings record. So your earnings record is what the Social Security Administration uses to calculate what your total benefit is going to be. And most of the time, Social Security is pretty accurate about the earnings history they include on your statement, which is used to factor in how your benefit is calculated. However, it is not uncommon for earnings information to be incorrect in any given year. And that is for a number of different reasons. Most commonly, it could be because the employer in a given year misreports your Social Security information. You may have a name change if you got married, and that may have messed some stuff up. Or an incorrect Social Security number could have been put in during a year when you had wages. And if that's the case, it will show up as a 0. And again, those zeros are inflation adjusted, which impact your future benefit. So if you look at your Social Security statement, it's important to get to page number 2 and just give a brief look at your old or your past earnings to make sure that numbers are listed in there and those numbers are accurate based off of what you remember earning in those years. And it's also important to note that Social Security takes your 35 highest earning years to calculate your benefit. And again, like we talked about before, those wages going back a long time are inflation adjusted every single year. So if you have a solid 35 years of earning history and you're going to work a couple more years, chances are, unless you get a dramatic increase in pay, those last couple of years of earnings aren't going to dramatically affect or impact or substantially increase your benefit when you get to Social Security age. So that's another important thing that people need to be aware of when they're looking at their Social Security statement and when they're deciding whether to continue receiving that or continue working or not. And that is because working a couple more years just to earn a little bit more salary is not going to substantially increase your Social Security. So when it comes to Social Security, get that online account if you want to learn more about your Social Security more than just annually, and especially get online access if you're under the age of 60 so you can monitor those earnings history, because you're not going to get an annual statement to begin with. And just know that Social Security decisions are almost always irrevocable. So it's important to make smart decisions right away and have those decisions incorporated into a broader retirement plan, because making correct decisions can have a huge financial impact positively on your future retirement. Again, my name is Derek Delaney. I am president and founder of PharmD Financial Planning, where we specialize in tax-efficient retirement planning. So if Social Security or other pre-retirement planning pieces of information are important and you want to learn more about the work we do for our clients, visit pharmdfp.com and schedule a complimentary consultation, and we can talk more about that. Until then, happy planning.